Hello, Ismail. That was amazing to hear you down there with the assistance to the VIF 2015.
Thank you for having me.
The importance of science and technology. Like everybody of us uses a cell phone, a tablet, and everything, but we are not as aware as we should be about technology and its potential window opportunities.
We are seeing today technologies move so quickly. For the first time in history, we have several technologies that have acquired informational properties, and they're now moving very, very fast. So the one way to think about it is in the 1500s, we had the Gutenberg moment, and the printing press changed everything. Today, it's like we're having 20 such Gutenberg moments at the same time.
Wow, and that means a lot, not just for the economy around the world, but especially for the developing countries as ours, but it means much more. As you say, it's like 15 Gutenberg machines working at the same time. I mean, in the level of innovation.
Yes, and it's actually a very unique time. For the first time in the history of the world, cutting-edge advanced technologies can be applied to the biggest problems: poverty, healthcare, clean water, education. We've never been able to do that before, and today we can do that, so it's very exciting.
You were giving some forecast of what is going to happen to the world in the next 15, 30, and even 50 years. And a friend of mine was like, "Oh, I'm afraid about everything he's talking about. I'm so scared." And I was telling her, like, you have not to be scared, because there are people like Salim that are thinking about the future. And then when some people think about the future, it's easier to forecast it.
Right. Well, a really important way of framing this is that we all have at the back of our brains an old organ called an amygdala, right? And it's constantly scanning for bad news. When we were evolving on the plains of Africa, if there was a noise in the bushes, you ran, because back in the day, bad news could kill you. Okay? So we are 10 times more likely to listen to bad news than we're listening to good news, which is why that's what you see on the news a lot. The reality today is that we need to program ourselves away from that. So what happens today is when you hear something new, your mind immediately goes to the negative consequences of it. So we try and shift people away and say, look, you can worry about robotic cars, but yes, a robotic car might kill somebody, but we're killing 33,000 people a year today using normal cars, and it's going to eradicate that. So look at the positive sides, which tend to be very profound.
Which are the main areas and opportunity windows of technology for the next 10 years for developing countries, or Mexico in particular?
Sure, there's some extraordinary possibilities, but the technologies that we're very, very excited about are artificial intelligence, biotechnology, 3D printing, sensors. All of these added up will profoundly change the equation and make it possible for us to deliver extraordinary value down to the most, deliver opportunity anywhere in the world.
You were talking a few minutes ago about technology being a tool, the most extraordinary one, to fight corruption.
Yes.
And that's very interesting for a country as Mexico, no?
So, a big part of corruption is the ability to have transparency. If you have full transparency, corruption disappears. And what these new technologies deliver us is actually full transparency. So if there's a grant or some food that's supposed to be delivered to a village, these new technologies allow us to know, yes, the food actually got there. And then you can actually do something about it. And so there's some really interesting structures that are being created to fight corruption, and they seem to be working extremely well.
You were saying nobody's going to be able to lie from now to 15 years.
In about 5 years.
5 years,
Yeah.
that's a little period of time. Even your wife.
Yes, no, it's a very, we've been operating on a certain social premise for our whole history of lifetime, and in a few years that will disappear, and so that will dictate a change in how we manage ourselves.
Those are today's problems, but you were talking about as well as future problems. We are going to feed a lot of more people than we have to feed today, and there is no intelligent other than technology and science fundamental way to feed that number, that quantity of people, without destroying the planet?
Well, we're worried mostly about things like meat production, and we're very worried about climate change because we don't know the tipping points that we may already have crossed, right? So for example, one effect of we're heating the planet. One outcome, one result of that is that the oceans are becoming more acidic. There are now certain species of snails that can't form their shells because of the increased acidity. If that happens to hit a horizontal layer in the food chain, we have a catastrophic problem very quickly. So it's such a complex environment, we just don't know where the tipping points are. So we're very concerned about climate, and the ability, what we're doing with meat production is a huge problem that we need to solve.
Technology is also giving us the opportunity to rethink the world in a philosophical way we never done before.
Very, very true. We actually do some of this thinking at Singularity where we think about philosophically the human condition. You know, for example, you could argue that I'm more human if I bring my smartphone with me than if I leave it at home. Because when I have my smartphone with me, I can communicate with anybody on the planet. I can video with my son. I can empathize with somebody on the planet because I can see what's happening. So the boundary of who a human being is now extends around that technology.
And what you do at Singularity University, you think about investment, but with a social view.
Yes, we think that it's very, very important to use these fast-moving technologies to solve the biggest problems in the world. And we find that we can actually do that for the first time in history. And so we get very excited. Also from an investment perspective, the biggest problems in the world are also the biggest market opportunities. Clean water, healthcare, education. If you can solve those, that's a billion-person problem. Right? So if you want to make $1 billion, go figure out how to positively affect 1 billion people.
You were also talking about this moment in history that the investment field is like larger than ever before in human history. This is amazing because the metabolism, when you were talking about the economy and metabolism, it's moving so quickly.
Yes.
And the field for investment is amazing, and I suppose so.
Well, it's
unknown.
It's dangerous because we don't know how things will play out. So the old way of investing, of saying, let me find a company that has a lock on scarcity and then invest in that, gives way. We need to think now about new companies that actually have learned how to tap into abundance. And so we are actually going to shift how we invest. And so it's a very volatile time. But when you have volatility, you have opportunity.
Yeah, sure. Which would you say that are the most important investment fields in Mexico?
Well, anything information-based is extraordinarily powerful. So healthcare, clean water, new education systems, I think may be the most powerful possibility.
Oh, well, it's amazing talking to you, Ismail. I really think that people like you are so necessary in our planet and in our, not just in investment, but in social and philosophical thinkers that are going to see the future, are seeing the future right now, and we have to take your insights and develop them. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.